Hello everyone, welcome to something rather new. I've never made a classic WoW talent video before, but I'm going to start today. For those of you who are looking for Resident Evil 4, you're going to be getting it Friday and Saturday this week, so no worries. The game will probably be over by Saturday because we're right at the end. For those here for classic WoW, maybe you've never played a Paladin, maybe you don't know how to level a Paladin, maybe you don't know the first thing about Paladins. That's what I'm here for. So, my first time playing a Paladin, I had no idea what you were supposed to level. Well, I knew everybody went Rut. That's about all I knew. So I, being the hipster that I was back then, I thought, well, I know Paladins heal it in-game, so I'd better level Holy, right? It's not that efficient. The only reason you'd want to level Holy, in the early game anyway, is because you'd want Consecration. Why would you want Consecration? Because you want to tank dead mines and stockades, essentially. Because you're not going to be doing a whole lot of damage in the open world with Consecration. Trust me, I did the math. Actually, not really. I just used it a lot while leveling my second character. Here's my second character, I think. I went Consecration and thought, I can AoE grind! Technically, you can. You will survive a lot of times. It's just not efficient in the least, and it takes way too long to do so. But you can, it's just not very efficient. Most people go Ret. Why? Ret does have higher damage. You have faster movement speeds for faster questing. And it's overall, I am loath to say this because I am not a fan of Ret. It's actually a faster leveling spec, I would imagine. I've never leveled Ret. I don't think I've ever even spec'd Ret in my life. I've always been Holy. So I figured for a change of pace and classic drops, I'm going to level Ret. I'm going to join the dark side. However, having said that, every time I ever try and do this in any kind of multiplayer game, if I'm ever in a situation where another person needs healing, I just go full Holy mode. I have a feeling I'm just going to do a flash of light spam in the middle of Stranglethorn Vale when people are trying to get killed. But that's my Holy Paladin speaking, so let's get into it. If you have no idea where you're starting, this is the build I would recommend that you go with. I would recommend you start Ret. Why? Because you're going to have mana problems early on. Now, the argument can be made that you want to rush Precision. The only reason I'm not doing that is because you're a new player, presumably, and you don't really, it's going to hamper your damage a lot, and it's going to be really boring. If you don't mind that, there is an argument to be made to rushing Precision. Now, if you do this, you will be slowing your progress toward your power curve. That's why a lot of people don't recommend you do that. I would recommend you go straight Benediction and over Blessing of Might, because improved Blessing of Might is going to lower your kill time by maybe a second per mob, maybe 2 at most. Whereas Benediction is going to keep you going from this mob to the next mob without running out of mana, hopefully, or at least a lot less often. And it'll just help your downtime, which is probably more significant than the 1 or 2 second faster kill time. Personally, I'd go Benediction. Next is Improved Judgment, straight up DPS increase. Judgment is your DPS on-demand cooldown of sorts. Because otherwise, you're going to be sealing Righteousness at this point and judging it. No, really, that's your 2 combat buttons, unless you heal. I'm serious. That's what you're going to do. So at this point, do you want to be more offensive? Or do you want to have more of a hybridized offense-defense 1-2? Personally, I would recommend if you're new to the game, you go Deflection, because that's a 3% chance that's a 3% more chance you're not going to get hit in the face with a weapon, as opposed to the offense. At this point, you might go, ooh, Conviction. It's a trap. Don't you do it. Don't you do it. You want to go Seal of Command first. And now you're going, oh, with this juicy new seal, then we need Conviction. No. You want to go Pursuit of Justice. You can go Conviction. It's an argument to be made there as well. Personally, I would recommend Pursuit of Justice. Why? It'll help you quest faster. You're questing faster, you're getting more XP per hour. More XP per hour means you level faster. Now, the Conviction is very important, but it's only really important when you have Vengeance unlocked, which obviously at level 27, we wouldn't yet. So at this point, you want to max rank your deflection. If you want to PvP, now would be the time to do it because you're at a 9 level. I don't recommend PvPing at a level that doesn't have a 9 before it, or a 0, meaning a 60. I don't recommend going into a battleground at 30. I wouldn't recommend doing that. You can, but anyway. We're getting off topic. At this point, it's either Improved Retribution Aura or Sanctity Aura. Now, you might be wondering why we didn't go Vindication. I've seen a lot of people back in the day where they went Vindication leveling. Because it only affects a limited number of mobs. There are a lot of... I remember there's a decent amount of mobs that were caster, and guess what? Reducing a caster's strength and agility doesn't really do much. Even if it's a melee and you lower its strength by 15%... you're not gonna be... it's not that big of a damage reduction. It sounds bigger than it is. So I wouldn't put points in there. Unless it's PvP. If it's in PvP, I can see the argument to be made for Vindication. But for straight leveling PvE, I wouldn't do it. But if you're on a PvP server, I can certainly understand why you would. Anyway, between the two auras, I would recommend... are you having more trouble with melee, or are you having more trouble with casters? I can pretty much guarantee you're going to have more problem with casters. I would go Sanctity Aura. There is an argument to be made for that as well. If you're in a lot of dungeon groups, the Improved Retribution Aura can be useful to your tank, so, I mean, that is nice. Or if you know you're going to be grinding an area of mobs that are dual-wielding, you might want to go Improved Retribution Aura. But the Sanctity Aura will up your Seal of Command damage. Not to mention your judgments. If you're using Judgment of Command, Judgment of Righteousness, which you probably should only be using Judgment of Righteousness when I think your weapon is, what, 2.4 or faster? And you think, or was it 3.4? That's pretty important to not forget, and I forgot it. Anyway, the slower the weapon is, the more you want Seal of Command. Just remember, the slower it is, the better Seal of Command is. The faster it is, normally you want to go Seal of Righteousness. And there are times, even if you're specialized in one-handers or two-handers, you're going to want to use the opposite one. For example, when I was leveling, I had Redoubt and Shield Specialization, but I think I came across... I think when I had Varrigan's Fist, I just used the two-hander anyway. But the point is, now, what do? You can put point in Eye for an Eye. If you don't know what Eye for an Eye does, whenever you get hit by a spell critical, which if you get hit by a spell critical as a paladin, your health's going to drop like a bunch of rocks. That's not going to do a whole lot of damage. So, it's like planning for failure. I don't really like Eye for an Eye. It's wonderful in PvP. Wonderful. PvE, though, not the best. So, I would probably put one Improved Steel Crusader, Vengeance, and then if you really need more crowd control as a paladin, you can get Repentance. It can probably save you if you pull very poorly, but if not, a lot of people have been known to skip this while leveling. Unless you're on a PvP server, then you probably want to get it. Because that's another crowd control that you can use to bandage up and not waste your mana. Of course, if they're undead, they're going to will of Forsaken that. You need to know that. It counts as an Incapacitate. Well, the Forsaken gets rid of Fear, Incapacitate, and Charm, I think, so not that useful against undead. Ironically. You'd think it would be. The Paladins are supposed to be the undead. Bane. Wait. In 1.12, did Fear Undead work against Forsaken? I remember it did for a while. I just don't know if it did then. I used to have so much fun in Battlegrounds just fearing undead players, and they probably hated me for it. Anyway, at this point, most people go Holy. Because they want to rush Consecration by level 50, which I'm not really sure why, because at that point you're not going to be AoE grinding, and Ret's kind of a single target grinding anyway, so I don't see the point of it. I guess the reason is because the first tier of protection is just doo-doo. For Ret, it's just awful for Ret. So, most people go Improve Strength, which, to be fair, if you're leveling, I guess I'd recommend this as well. I would get Spiritual Focus because you want to be able to heal if things are bashing on you, but by this point, I guess you're probably used to it, but it'll help, trust me. Consecration, I would get Improved Holy Light. If you're PvPing much at all, you gotta have Unyielding Faith, because 10% don't sound like a lot, but it'll save you butt. It'll save your friend's butt too, if you're not feared and you're healing them. Illumination, Divine Favor, and voila, you have the Cookie Cutter 21-0-30. This is the unofficial name I gave it was, I want to DPS, but I actually should be healing spec. You're not as good at either one, but you can do crap for both. At this point, I would recommend respecking. I'm not going to tell you you have to respec Holy, but I'm going to be respecking Holy. This is my default build. A lot of people argue this is not a very good build. I say to hell with them. I say it's a good build. But this is a build I usually use. So, you know, free fall, warning there, this is probably not optimal, but this, you gotta also keep in mind, in vanilla, you had a respec cost. It started at 1 gold. Second respec cost 5 gold, 10 gold, 20 gold. Might have went to 30. I might have went 20 to 40. I think it went 30, 40, and then 50 gold. You don't want to respec that often. So this is also kind of a money-making thing. So when I get to 51 or 60, depending, because I don't know if AV will be out. If AV's not out, I'll just respec at 60. If AV's out, I'll probably respec at 51 and go Holy. So this is the spec I usually went. Now, why no precision? Because at 60, you're not swinging your one-hander. Or at least you shouldn't. Because you should be back with the healers. If you're Holy. I think I usually went this spec right here. It's also pretty darn good in PvP if you want to be the PvP tank. So that's something to think about. And I guess you should put another point there. This is what I normally do. It's not the most efficient in PvE, because improved Concentration Aura and improved Hammer of Justice don't do much in raids. But since I do raids and PvP, I won't hopefully have to switch. Now, if you wanted to go completely PvE, you would take these points out, and you'd go improve Blessing of Might. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're PvPing, in my eyes, you need improved Concentration Aura. Hammer of Justice, 10-second cooldown, 10-second less cooldown on a 6-second stun is pretty big. Some people would go and, you know, do this. Personally, I as a Paladin healer, your biggest thing is Counterspell, or Shock, or darn you shamans, or you know, stuff like that. Mainly the Counterspell from the Fell Hunters, or the Mages, or even, does Pummel count as an interrupt? I think it does. That's huge, so I would prioritize that. Anyway, that's my build at 60. That's what I'm going to be playing. It's what I've always played at 60, and it's what I will always continue to play at 60 when I level my Paladin. So, hopefully this helped people out there who were newbies. If you're a veteran, I have no idea why the hell you watch this. Maybe you just like my Let's Plays and you just want to see what the hell ignorance I had to spew here. Personally, I think this is actually pretty decent. Bottom line for each of the specs. If you're Holy, you're either, in the early game, you're going to be tanking or healing, one of the two. Probably you should be healing, but you can tank with Consecration. If you go prot off the bat, you better get precision, because you're not going to be tanking, probably, unless you have the A-team of crowd control behind you. Because you'd have to have... I have done it as a Holy Paladin, but that was with, like, the all-star team behind me of a mage that knew how to polymorph, a rogue that knew how to sap, and a hunter that knew how to trap. If you want to go prot leveling, I think people do it at 40, like they respec at 40 and then go AoE grind. I don't know how to do that, so I'm not going to try and tell you how to do that, but there are guides on YouTube to show you how to do that. But Holy, basically, if you want to level slow and steady, or if you just want to tank early, you go Holy. Your late game Holy, you're probably healing. Holy Shot can do damage, and it's actually a pretty decent nuke if in PvP. And that's why they call Shocking it. I think in Classic it was 30-second cooldown, so it's not exactly up all the time. If you go prot early, you're going basically prot for precision, which is not a terrible idea, considering you don't want to miss. If you're going ret, well, you're following the cookie cutter leveling spec, or you want to be a Holy Warrior in PvP, because you're not going to be a Holy Warrior in PvE unless your guild is exceptionally kind. It's not... I guess their argument could be made if you have a Nightfall, you could go a ret, but they're not really good Nightfall proccers either, because they don't have any on-command, swings like, for example, a Hunter with Nightfall could wing clip spam, or whatever in the world that was called. I think it was wing clip. I guess Enhancement Shamans kind of get the shaft here as well, so don't feel bad, Retribution Paladins. In PvE, you're probably gonna be Nightfall. So, if you actually want to be a red DPS in PvE, I guess you should be looking for Nightfall. But otherwise, red is pretty much just a leveling spec and a PvP spec. generally, unless you have a really nice skill. I have nothing against Rets who want to raid, but you're not being as efficient as you could, and that's okay, as long as you're not hurting 39 other people's chance of success. But anyway, I guess that's it. As far as prot, in-game, you can tank 5-mans. You're going to be a little slower because you got to drink after every pull. You can tank 5-mans very easily. Only problem is, there's 2 big problems with prot tanking in-game. One is one of their bread and butter talents. You might notice you have to be crit first, and if you're a tank in a raid, you really don't want to be crit. So that's a no-no. Number 2, you don't have taunt. Paladins did not get a taunt in World of Warcraft until the Burning Crusade. I don't remember exactly what it was called, but I know that for a fact. So, early game tanking, early game precision, early game cookie cutter, late game healing, late game 5-man king tanking, though arguably druids are better, I think are, but hey, I think prot paladin and druids are right up there in 5-mans. It's easier to tank than a warrior, I'll tell you that now. At least in 5-mans. And then, late game, you're probably PvPing. Or you have an exceptionally kind guild if you're red. That's about it, everybody. I can't think of much more else to say about this class and its talents. Maybe I'm wrong about prot. Maybe I'm underestimating prot. Maybe it's the underdog I'm not playing, but I'm not planning on doing that. I'm planning on leveling Ret, possibly making a run for precision and then leveling Ret, but that would delay my power curve, so I don't think I'll do that. I'll probably just go straight Ret, and then go into prot so I can get my precision, or possibly even holy. There's a lot of ways you can do it in the old talent system, is why I love it so much. There's so many different choices. Obviously, I'm just going to tell you this, it's more deceptive than it appears. Toughness is not that great of a talent. It's really not. It might sound good. 8% or 10% value from armor is really more like usually like maybe a couple percent of, what do you call that? Damage reduction? Probably closer to like 1. But this is at 60. If I was leveling, I would definitely get precision. And, you know, if you are ret at in-game, you need precision. If you're trying to DPS in a raid, you need precision. So, that's all I got. I'm not going to hammer on any more about obvious things, but this is my build that I would be using, and I will be using. So, hopefully, I will see you all later. Remember, for the Alliance. Next time, or rather, in the future, I might go with might make a guide on this, on the Priest or the Warrior. I have more experience on the Warrior than I do the Priest, but the Priest was my very first character ever, so I'm thinking about making a leveling guide for them as well. Or rather, a talent leveling guide. I leveled Holy. I will recommend doing that. And Warrior is probably the most fun class to level for me. So, I will see you all next time, everybody. If you want one last look, there you go. And hopefully, I will see you later. Later, everybody.